So you had to find the slope of the line that passes through the 2 points and use the slope formula to do that. Okay, so you had -2, 1, and 7, 1. Okay, using that slope formula that I wrote up there for you. Okay, remember we can label these. Okay, this is your first x and your first y. This is your second x and your second y. Okay, so whenever I'm plugging these in, y2 minus y1, that's going to be 1 minus 1. On the bottom, x2 minus x1, that's going to be 7 minus -2. So make sure you remember that it's minus a -2, not just 7 minus 2. Okay, so on the top you have 0. On the bottom, keep change opposite, so it's going to turn into 9. Okay, and we talked about this yesterday. If you have 0 over 9 or 0 divided by 9, that is the same thing as just having 0. Okay, which is a horizontal line, if you remember talking about that. Okay, that just means that it's completely flat. There's no incline or decline. So now we're going to do the same thing for b. So you have x1 and y1, x2 and y2. Okay, filling that into my slope formula. Okay, y2 minus y1, or 3 minus 0. x2 minus x1, or 3.5 minus 4.25. Okay, so 3 minus 0 is going to just give me 3. Whoops, 3. 3.5 minus 4.25, that's going to be negative 0.75, or negative 3/4 if you did it that way. Okay, you do have to divide those two things, and you can just divide those on your calculator. 3 divided by negative 0.75, okay, that's going to give you negative 4. Okay, so you can type it just like that on your calculator, 3 divided by that decimal, okay, and you're going to end up with negative 4 for that. Okay. 2 parts. Okay, so that was the bell work. Okay, and today's lesson is going to be split up into 2 different parts. So we're going to do part of it today and part of it tomorrow. If you did not finish last night's Math Excel homework, you need to make sure that you have that done by 3 o'clock today. So today we're going to be expanding on our slope, and we're going to be writing entire linear equations using slope-intercept form. So we talked a little bit about slope yesterday, and today we're going to talk about the y-intercept. This is the y-coordinate of a point where it crosses the y-axis. So on a graph, if this was like your points and whatever, okay, you have 2 axes. Okay, the one that runs left to right is the x-axis. The one that runs up and down is the y-axis. Okay, if I draw a line on here, okay, wherever that line crosses through the y-axis, okay, that one that runs up and down, that's called the y-intercept. Okay, where it intercepts the y-axis. Now, we're going to talk about slope-intercept form. Okay, y equals mx plus b. Okay, might be something that you are familiar with and heard before, maybe not. Okay, y equals mx plus b is a form of a line. Okay, so m and b are both numbers. They're representatives, okay, of numbers. So m represents the slope. Okay, and I'm not sure why they picked the letter m for slope. That's just what they chose. Okay, so the number that's in front of x, that's always going to be our slope. Okay, and we're going to be doing plus b, and b is representing the y-intercept. Okay, so m is telling me how the line is going up or down. Okay, is it going uphill or is it going downhill? Okay, and b is telling me where it crosses the y-axis. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to write these equations and how to find both m and b to make this happen. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to look at is what is the slope and the y-intercept of the graph y equals 5x minus 2. Okay, so if they just give us y equals 5x minus 2, okay, and I think about my equation of a line, y equals mx plus b. Okay, anytime that I'm looking at my slope-intercept form, I can easily identify what m and b are. Okay, m is the number that's in front of x. Okay, so the number that we have in front of x here is 5. Okay, and it's a positive 5, which means our line is going uphill. Let's see. Okay. Now, b is always going to be the constant, or the number that's not changing, does not have the variable. Okay, so in this case, since I have a minus 2, that's like having a negative 2 as our b. Okay, so m is always the number in front of x. That's telling us how our rate of change is happening. Okay, so how is it going up or how is it going down? Okay, and then the constant number, the one that does not have a variable, that is always going to be where it crosses the y-axis. So if I was going to graph this, it would cross the y-axis at -2. Okay. Now, you can also go in reverse. They can tell us what the slope and the y-intercept are, and we can write the equation for this. Okay, so they tell us what's an equation of a line with a slope of -4/5 and a y-intercept of 7. Okay, so slope of -4/5. Okay, slope is represented by the letter m. Okay, so when I'm looking at using y equals mx plus b, I need to figure out what number goes here in front of x and what number goes here for b. Okay, so m is going to be the slope, so the number in front of x is going to be -4/5. Okay, y-intercept is 7, and that is represented by our b, so it's going to be plus 7. So when I go to write my equation here, you don't need these parentheses. Okay, -4/5 x plus 7. Okay, that would be the equation of our line. Does anybody have any questions so far? If you guys have a question on Zoom, just unmute yourself and ask. Okay. Now, you can also write an equation for a graph. Okay, so we're going to use this graph, and for us to write the equation, we always have to know what the slope is, or what m is, and what b is, or what the y-intercept is. Okay, so let's start. In my opinion, it's easier just to find b first on the graph. Okay, it's easy to see where it crosses the y-axis, the one that goes straight up and down. Okay, it crosses the y-axis right here. Okay, which hopefully you can tell is -2. So up here in this blank where it says find b, okay, it's crossing the y-axis at -2. Okay, now for us to find the slope, okay, we're going to do what we did yesterday, and we're going to find a second point and count the rise over the run. Okay, so we're going to find a second point, so we could use a point for right here, or right here, or right here. Any of those points, if you count the slope in between them, they're going to be the same. Okay, so we're going to do rise over run. So I'm going to go from -2, I'm going to go to this point right here. Okay, I'm going to go rise over run, so I'm going to go up 2, which is a positive, and I'm going to go right 1, which is also a positive. 2 over 1, you can just write that as 2. Okay, there's no reason for you to just have 2 over 1. Now, if you know m and you know b, you can write your equation. Okay, so y equals mx plus b, replace m with what you found, and replace b with what you found. Okay, so y equals m, which in this case is +2, x plus b. Now, if you do plus -2, okay, that's the same thing as saying y equals 2x minus 2. Okay, so that's how we would write our answer right there. So if we add a negative number, that's the same thing as just saying that we subtract 2. Okay, so anytime we're writing an equation, we're finding m and we're finding b if they don't give it to us, okay, and subbing those into the right spots in those equations. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so I'm going to have you try these. It's just like the ones that we just did. Okay, the first one you're telling me what the slope and y-intercept are. Okay, the second one you're telling me what's the equation that has this slope and y-intercept, and then the third one you're looking at this graph on the right. Okay, so take a minute and look at those 3 questions and see what you come up with. Also, those of you that joined late, if you have not sent your name in the chat, please do so I can take attendance. Just so you guys know, I have you do that because I usually don't take attendance until class is over. So if you didn't put your name in the chat, then I don't remember if you were here or not. I was looking at y equals mx plus b, which one goes in for m and which one goes in for b. So you can figure out. Well, not necessarily because it's top and bottom, it's wherever it crosses on the grid. You need to look and see where it's like it crosses right there, crosses right there. So you gotta make sure it's at a place where it actually crosses the ground. Okay, so on the first one, okay, what is the slope and y-intercept of y equals 0.5x plus 2? Okay, so you're trying to tell me identify what the slope is and identify what the y-intercept is. Okay, so slope on this one, okay, number that's in front of x. Okay, so if I'm looking at this right here, okay, the number that's in front of x is 0.5. That's my slope. Okay, your slope does not contain x, it's only the number that's in front of x. Okay, y-intercept is going to be the constant or the number that's by itself, okay, which in this case is a plus 2. Okay, so my y-intercept is positive 2. Any questions about that? Okay, so the next one asks you, what is the equation of the line with a slope of 3/2 and a y-intercept of -1? Okay, would anybody like to unmute themselves on Zoom here and tell me what they got as their answer? Good. Was that you, Taylor? Thank you. Okay, so y equals 3 over 2x minus 1. Okay, so the 3/2 is the slope. Okay, because it tells us it has a slope of 3 over 2, which is m. That's the number in front of x. And then it has a y-intercept of -1. Okay, so that's going to be our y-intercept right there. Okay, now, again, you don't need to put plus -1. You can just put -1. Okay, and the last one says, what is the equation of the line that was shown here? So again, you need to find where it's crossing on the y-axis first. Okay, so y runs up and down. It's crossing my y-axis right here at positive 2. Okay, now find a second point on that line, and there's several. Okay, you can choose this one right here. Find where it's crossing the grid. Okay, there's one right here. Okay, there's several on this one. Okay, just pick 2 of those points and count the rise over run. Okay, so if I was starting here at my y-intercept and I was going down to this point, I would go down 1 and then right 1. Okay, so for my m, I would go down 1, so it's a negative, and then right 1. Okay, if I simplified that, that's just going to be -1. -1 over 1. We said that b was the y-intercept where it crossed, which was at positive 2. So when I go to write this equation here, okay, that's going to say y equals -1x, or just negative x if you want to put that, and then plus 2. Okay. Any questions about those 3 types of problems? Okay, again, if you guys have a question on Zoom, just unmute yourself and I'll help you with that. Okay, so now we're going to write the equation of a line that passes through the points 2, 1, and 5, -8. Okay, so we still need m and b. Okay, we always need m and b because that's what goes into our equation. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to find what the slope is. Now, use the slope formula. This is what we did yesterday, which is why we started with this. Okay, find the slope between the 2 points here. Okay, so if I'm looking at my ordered pairs 2 and 1, that's going to be my first x and y. 5, negative 8 is going to be my second x and y. Okay, so use my slope formula that we learned yesterday. Okay, find what m is. So y2 minus y1, that's going to be negative 8 minus 1. x2 minus x1, that's going to be 5 minus 2. Okay, so negative 8 minus 1 is negative 9. 5 minus 2 is positive 3. Anytime we can reduce or simplify, we need to make sure that we take care of that. Okay, so negative 9 over positive 3, that just simplifies to negative 3. Okay, so m in this case is negative 3. Okay, now this part right here is new. Okay, so pay attention here. We have to figure out what b is. Okay, and I wrote some directions there. Okay, use the slope in the coordinates of one point with y equals mx plus b. Okay, so the only equation that I know right now is y equals mx plus b. That's the only equation I know that has b in it that I can use to figure out what the y-intercept is. Okay, so I'm going to pick one of these points up here. Doesn't matter which one. Okay, I'm just going to use this first one here, 2, 1. Okay, and that is going to serve as the x and the y in this equation. Okay, now I already know what m is because I just found it right here. Okay, so when I'm looking at y equals mx plus b, y is going to come from this ordered pair up here, which in this case is 1. M is going to come from the slope I just found, which is negative 3. X is also going to come from this ordered pair up here, which is positive 2. Then I have plus b. Now everything has a number value except for b, and I can solve this. Okay, so whenever I'm solving, I'm trying to get b by itself. So I have 1 equals 3, or sorry, negative 3 times 2 is negative 6 plus b. I'm trying to get b by itself. So I got to cancel out negative 6 by adding it. That'll cancel, and I get that b is actually equal to 7. Okay, so again, we use one of the ordered pairs up at the top, okay, along with the slope that I just found, and plug those in for y, m, and x. Okay, now at this point I can write y equals mx plus b. I can substitute the values that I found for m and b. Okay, so whenever I write my equation, I want y equals whatever m is, whatever b is has to go in there, but x and y stay the same. So y equals m, we found was negative 3, x plus b, we found was 7. Okay, when I go to write my equation, I have x and y in my final answer. Okay, the only time we replace x and y is whenever we're solving for b. When I write my final answer, this should say y, and there should be an x right here. Okay, because this was only one ordered pair, and I want it to be for all the ordered pairs on that line. Okay. Any questions about any of those steps that we just went through, or how to find any of those things? Where I got, like when we did B. So this one and this one come from this ordered pair up here. So like that is the X from the ordered pair and the Y from the ordered pair. So the 2 and the 1. Does that make more sense now? So then you have numbers in there for X, Y, and M so that you can solve for that one letter. We're going to do another one like that too, okay? Any other questions about that one? Okay, so we're going to do one more like this. This is the last example that we're going to do. And it says, write the equation that passes through the 2 points, 3, negative 2, and 1, negative 3. Okay, so I'm trying to write this into y equals mx plus b. Okay, first thing that I'm going to find is the slope. I'm going to find m. Okay, now I'll write it up here again, but we need to make sure that we know what the slope formula is. Okay, so let's start out by labeling. Okay, This is my first x and my first y. This is my second x and my second y. Okay, so y2 minus y1. y2 is negative 3 minus y1, which is negative 2. Again, make sure you do minus a negative number there. x2 is positive 1 minus x1, which is 3. So keep change opposite up on the top. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Now, this obviously cannot be reduced, but you can simplify this. Okay, negative 1 over negative 2, that turns into a positive 1/2. Okay. Any questions about finding the slope? That's what we did yesterday, so we should be good with that part. Now, the second part of this is finding b. Okay, so use our equation, y equals mx plus b. Okay, m is going to be what we just found for the slope. So this 1/2 right here. Okay, x and y come from one of our ordered pairs. I always just pick the first one. Okay, that's going to come from right here. So y comes from our ordered pair. Okay, that's going to be negative 2 equals m comes from our slope right here, 1/2. X comes from the ordered pair up here, 3. And then I still have plus b. So I tried to do it in color so you can see what kind of matched what. Okay, green comes from the ordered pair that I boxed in green. Okay, blue comes from the slope that I did in blue. Okay, now whenever I solve this, okay, I have to multiply right here. Okay, so this is still negative 2. Okay, 1/2 times 3 is 3 over 2, or 1 and 1/2. And then plus b. Okay, I'm trying to get b by itself. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 3 over 2, or 1.5, or 1.5, however you have it there. That cancels, and I end up getting that b is equal to negative 3.5, or negative 3.5. Because it's negative 2 minus 1.5. Okay, so now the third thing I need to do is write my answer. Write my equation, y equals mx plus b. Okay, so I know that y equals m, this is the value that we found right here. Okay, so 1/2. Okay, this comes from here. X plus b we found right here. So negative 3.5. And again, if I have plus a negative number, that's the same thing as just saying minus. So 1/2 x minus 3.5. Any questions on that example? Okay. So this is broken into 2 parts. So there is more slides up here that we are going to finish tomorrow. Okay, but we are going to work on Math Excel homework just for this first part. So when you go on to Math Excel, you are going to see homework just for 5.3 part 1.